Part 24. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 231. A small candle lit up in the courtyard, and then moved towards Shen Yun. I've lost weight again. Yang Xiaoko looked at Shen Yun under the light and said distressedly. Grandma, you're not thin, it's dark and you look thin. Shen Yun smiled and stopped Yang Xiaoko's arm. You will fool me. Yang Xiaoko laughed when Shen Yun said this. I'm not fooling you. It's hard for me to lose any fat on my body now. Look, I'm fine now. I'm not sick or injured. How can I lose weight? Shen Yun said seriously. The impurities in her body now are basically having done all the above, plus practicing physical training, the body's appearance has become perfect. If you lose weight, you must be seriously ill or injured. But, you're sick and injured. I don't want to say that, Grandma just said casually. We can look at it now, it's good like this. Yang Xiaoko heard Shen Yun say this and quickly stopped him. Okay, I'll do whatever you want, Shen Yun responded with a smile, watching Yang Kankan come over with his little brother in his arms, and took him directly into his arms. When the family saw Shen Yun coming, they all put down what they were doing. Last time, Shen Yun also came back at night. It was not surprising for everyone to see Shen Yun at this time. Shen Yun looked around and wondered why the third and fourth brothers were not there. Then he looked at Shen Jian's room. The candles were lit, and he was lying there alone. Everyone else had come out at this moment. But it's not necessarily true that I might have to go out for something. Grandpa, Grandma, parents, uncle, how are you doing at home recently? Shen Yun asked, looking at everyone. Okay, eat well, sleep well, Shen Jian looks good recently. Your brothers are very confident in this final exam, and they should be able to get good results, Shen Kuliang said with a smile. That's good. By the way, I found something good recently, and I just happened to come back and give it to Shen Jian to try, Shen Yun said and took out 2 lotus seeds from his pocket. The second uncle and second aunt next to him looked directly over. Is this a lotus seed? Yes, but it's not an ordinary lotus, Shen Yun explained simply. However, everyone also felt it. As soon as the lotus seed was taken out, everyone felt refreshed. Could this be the effect that ordinary things can achieve? Is this for Shen Jian? How should I feed it to him? Should I eat it now? The second aunt asked anxiously. Grind it into powder and add it to your daily meals. Just put a little bit in 1 meal a day, Shen Yun said and gestured with her fingernails. She calculated that this was the most suitable amount for Shen Jian. If it was like he was so lively and active that it was no problem to eat it in pieces, but Shen Jian still had to control the amount. Okay, thank you, aunt. Thank you for thinking of Shen Jian every time. The second aunt quickly took the things from Shen Yun's hand, thanked her, and carefully went to find something to put these 2 precious lotus pods together. Put it away. It's getting dark now and it's not suitable for grinding flour. I'll wait until daybreak to avoid spreading it. Seeing the second uncle and second aunt like this, the family was silent for a moment. Although the family's conditions are getting better and better, Shen Jian lying there is always a thorn in everyone's heart. Only when he gets better will the thorn can be pulled out. Dad, hold your little brother, I'll go over and take a look. Shen Yun gave Shen Liman the little brother Shen in his arms, turned around and walked towards the room where Shen Jian was lying. There was a kerosene lamp placed in the room. Although the light was very dim, you could see that Shen Jian's face looked good. Although he had been lying down, there was nothing wrong with his body. His cultivation level is also rising steadily. It seems that he is persisting in what he said to deliver spiritual energy to Shen Jian day by day. Shen Jian is in good condition. He may suddenly wake up one day in the future. Second uncle and 2 aunts, please relax. Shen Jian is a cultivator now and his body is better than yours. Shen Yun looked at the 2 thin men next to him. Many old people have advised me that there are more and more white hairs on my head every time. Standing with my grandparents, I look older and older than them. Shen Yun could not guarantee when Shen Jian would wake up, so he could only say some words of comfort at this time. Don't worry, we're fine. Shen Jian is still pointing out the couple of us to help him, so nothing will happen to us. It's just that I've had a bit of a bitter summer recently and I've lost a little weight. I heard the kids say, as our ancestors said, it's hard to buy money but you'll lose weight when you're old. It's okay. The second uncle waved his hands and said with a smile. It's just that it's only June, and you have to wear a coat in the morning and evening on the mountain. It's already a bitter summer there. Shen Yun looked at the two people and was hard-pressed to say anything. Shen Jian is lying here now. Even if he says all kinds of things, they can't hear what he thinks. They can only think about it themselves. Okay, anyway, I will continue to think of a solution when I get back. Shen Yun looked at the person carefully, said a few words, and left the room. It's getting late this time. Although there are immortal cultivators at home, there are also ordinary people, and it's time to go to bed. Shen Yun said goodbye to his grandparents and followed Shen Liman and his wife as they walked up. Mom and Dad, how are you doing recently? Shen Yun asked Shen Xin while walking. Everything is fine at home. Don't worry. During this period, the business at home has continued to pick up. Although it is not as good as during the Chinese New Year, it is not bad. We are now stronger and dare to sell farther away. The goods are here, and now no one dares to come here to cause trouble. Everything is going in a good direction, Shen Liman said with a smile. That's good. After all, this is not an era where everyone is cultivating immortals. Some living necessities still need to be obtained with money. Shen Yun does not object to them doing some business. Your dad and the others just wanted to pick up the business and were a little afraid of delaying their cultivation. I told you that you would definitely agree, so they decided to pick up the business. Yang Kenken mercilessly exposed Shen Liman and the others. Tangled. Shen Yun also laughed and said, Dad, if you work hard, you can think of it as accumulating experience. Even if our family cannot become a master cultivator in the future, we must become the most profitable among the cultivators. Okay, Dad will do a good job. Shen Liman was said to be very motivated by Shen Yun. The family's laughter spread far along the mountain road. This life is completely different from the previous life. Shen Yun didn't stay at home for long. He set out early the next morning. When he left, he realized that Shen Hong and Shen Hong had also heard about the treasures in Kunlun Mountain and had gone there to try their luck. Shen Yun was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect the news to spread so far. He promised that his family would inquire about it when they got back, and then headed towards the capital city carrying large and small bags of things prepared by his relatives. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 232. Chapter 232, 232, generally speaking, you don't take action. Taking action is just business. It's already June 15th when I return to Beijing. There will be a meeting at 8 o'clock this morning. Shen Yun put on the clothes he had prepared in advance, combed his hair in a smart style, took the ID that Su Lei sent to him, and set off directly. This meeting is a small-scale meeting involving cultivators and high-level officials. It is mainly to discuss some general directions and terms for the future management of cultivators. The main purpose of the following meetings is to determine the implementation of these provisions. Of course, some of them are mandatory, so some senior officials will attend this meeting. After all, many cultivators have high levels of cultivation, but some people still focus on a relatively small problem. What applies to one person may not necessarily apply to the entire group. Shen Yun went to the meeting to show that he attached great importance to this matter, and he had no suggestions to make. After all, with his current level of cultivation, he would generally not cause trouble easily, unless the person needed to be managed within his scope of responsibility, such as this time. Boss Fu, when the official business is completed, the personal affairs are also solved. This meeting was held in a very formal conference room. Shen Yun arrived relatively early. When he showed the staff his credentials and entered, there was no one there yet. The entire conference room is not small, but everyone's seat is arranged in advance. Shen Yun's position is quite forward, in the second row. This is something she didn't expect when she came. With such a high position, do you want to give some constructive suggestions? Thinking of this, Shen Yun immediately started brainstorming. It was the first time for such a meeting, and he didn't know what the charter was, so he had better prepare first. After all, this is not it was as casual as when I held an archaeological conference in my previous life. Everyone could have a small meeting at the cemetery. When the name was called in the meeting, everyone looked here. Thinking about Shen Yun was very social. This was even more uncomfortable than having to perform an immortal magic in front of the public. Shen Yun thought about it while writing it down on paper. There were gradually more people around. Although Shen Yun was a little younger when he was sitting in the crowd, this occasion was not a place for gossip. Everyone sat quietly in their seats and looked around at the situation in the conference room. The people sitting next to me were none other than Yan Han, Chu Yushan, one expressionless, and the other smiling. Shen Yun glanced at the two of them. Sure enough, no one dared to look at Yan Han. There was someone saying hello to Chu Yushan next to him. Shen Yun immediately followed suit, his face straightened, and the person who was originally sizing him up suddenly felt a chill. People in the distance felt it, and the severe cold nearby must have also felt it. He turned his head and glanced at Shen Yun, and saw that the delicate face was cold and expressionless, and the body was sitting upright. "Are you in a bad mood?" Yan Han asked in a low voice. "No, didn't I learn this from you? We should take formal occasions seriously." Shen Yun didn't know how the other party saw that she was unhappy, so he explained in confusion. Yan Han was confused when he said this. He just didn't express his emotions habitually. He looked so scary. He felt cold even sitting next to him. At this moment, he felt inexplicably that the colleagues he used to get along with were a bit hard. "Be serious, and calm down your momentum, otherwise we won't be able to sit here for a while." Chu Yushan, who was next to him, heard the conversation between the two people and said with a smile. The two men nodded immediately, that was affirmative. Shen Yun also relaxed a little. The time soon reached 8 o'clock, and the whole conference room was full. Several people who were often seen in newspapers and TV were sitting in the front, and there were also many practitioners with different styles sitting in the back. There are different levels of cultivation, and it seems that the momentum of those who cultivate here is much stronger than that of ordinary people. After Chu Yushan's reminder, Shen Yun restrained his momentum. Sitting here like an ordinary person, he felt some weak spiritual consciousness occasionally sweeping over him. Shen Yun resisted the urge to fight back and ignored the influence of these spiritual consciousnesses. Exist. It seems like I need to remind you of these things during the next meeting. Yan Han next to him obviously felt a little bit of being spied on, and he immediately came up with a suggestion. When the meeting officially started, these wandering consciousnesses were put back. The conference put forward a lot of suggestions for practitioners, which were obviously prepared for a long time in advance. Shen Yun was listening and felt that these things were very reasonable at this stage. As for future development, he would wait until the time comes to add more. There is no process for nominating people one by one to express their opinions. Someone puts it forward, everyone expresses their opinions, and then everyone raises their hands to vote whether the opinion is reasonable or not. This is still the first step, and these issues will still be discussed at the later conference. During the 3-day meeting, Shen Yun listened from his seat without any desire to speak. Anyway, these things did no harm to him. Although he had become a cultivator, he was definitely a law-abiding person. I originally thought that my task would be over after sitting here for 3 days, but I didn't know that I would appoint a few supervisors in the end. One of them has himself. Shen Yun was still a little confused when his name was called. Should the supervisor be chosen from among the following people? How come they were directly named? However, after being stunned for a moment and seeing the big leaders above looking at him eagerly, Shen Yun walked up. Although some people below are a little surprised why Shen Yun was chosen for this position at such a young age, this is not the time to question. Those who need to know the reasons, and those who don't know want to find out more later. Supervisors are also law enforcers. Their main job is that if specific regulations on the behavior of cultivators are released in the future, then they will be responsible for the last step, which is to arrest those cultivators who are disobedient and powerful. They are the bottom line of this charter. So the people selected this time are very strong, and it seems that except for myself, everyone has never participated in such a job, and everyone else has experience. Shen Yun accepted the employment certificate from above and then came down directly. There is still this link, why didn't you tell me in advance? Shen Yun asked Yan Han next to him in a low voice. This was decided before the meeting this afternoon. I don't even know who is involved, Yan Han explained in a low voice. Then why choose me? I'm just a temporary worker. I work part-time in a special department. Shen Yun was puzzled. Didn't you realize that your salary has long been the same as that of a regular employee? Besides, if you are not selected, if anything happens in the future, we won't be able to defeat you. Yan Han is a rare sincerity. This time he will tell the truth to Shen Yun, explain the purpose of choosing her, and it was nothing more than recognition of her strength. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 233. Chapter 233, 233, Green Tea for Men? I haven't gone to collect my salary for several months. How do I know that I have become a regular employee? Shen Yun slandered in his mind. Yan Han didn't know what Shen Yun was thinking, so he just whispered to the side, "Don't leave until it's over. We need to have a small meeting." Shen Yun nodded. It was just a meeting anyway. It has been 3 days and there are still a few more days to come. I don't care about this time. After the meeting ended, people walked outside one after another. Shen Yun sat on the seat and waited for the next meeting to proceed. Du Ji contacted me 2 days ago about the matter in Hong Kong City. The rest of the Fu family's manpower over there has been solved. We are currently promoting the stone statue. However, due to the appearance of the stone statue on Kunlun Mountain, Hong Kong City, many people who believed in the immortal god were weak and sick, so the destruction of the stone statues went smoothly. The Du family has also worked with our people there to handle the affairs of the research laboratory. Have you handled the research institutes in other places? Chen Yun whispered to Yan Han and Chu Yushin beside him. I have brought the list from Boss Du to the capital city. Some time ago, Yan Han and I went out together to visit the leaders of the region where the institute is located. As for whether they will handle it in the end, this is not something we can decide. It is no longer easy for them to handle their domestic affairs now. They can only rely on themselves for external matters. Anyway, when the two of them go out to talk, some people believe it, and of course there are others who are complicit. This is really not something they can interfere with. Yes, this is a national principle. Hearing what Chu Yushin said, Shen Yun felt a lot more relieved. As long as domestic matters are resolved, other countries can only say that if their own people go out, they are probably more anxious to guard against their own people, not their own countrymen. Established Research Institute. So Shen Yun was helpless. After all, she was a human being, not a god. Then this matter can be considered successfully concluded. Shen Yun was in a good mood. Yes, I have saved a lot of people, but there is another troublesome thing. The identity of the man in black is very mysterious and has not been investigated yet. Then there is the guy with wings, who is still there. He's been locked up, and he's making a lot of noise every day. Speaking of this Birdman, he has a severe headache due to the severe cold. He has been working for such a long time, and I have never seen such a naughty person. The person who guards him has improved his foreign language by leaps and bounds in recent times. What a hot potato this is. I still have a few white-winged people in my hand. Let's figure out how to deal with them together. After saying this, Chen Yun remembered the 16 people who were locked up in the spirit beast bag in Hong Kong City before. I immediately forgot about this matter when I got busy. Now when I heard Yan Han say this, it gave me a headache anyway. So many people gave me a headache. The two people next to him looked over with a little surprise when they heard what Shen Yun said. You are really good at causing trouble, but people were busy when you came back from the port city. Where do you keep this person? Chu Yushan asked in a low voice. Hidden in a mysterious place. Don't worry, no one will find it. When you figure out how to deal with it, I will let you see it. Okay. You two wait here for the meeting. I'll go back and think about what to do about this matter first. After Chu Yushan finished speaking, he stood up and followed the crowd outside. Shen Yun and Yan Han, who were sitting in the front, were waiting for the people behind to finish leaving. They could just use this conference room to hold a small meeting. Yun Yun, are you Yun Yun? Shen Yun was sitting and discussing with Yan Han how to go to the place where elixirs were studied in the past 2 days to communicate, when he heard someone asking from behind with a little uncertainty. He hadn't heard this voice for a long time. When he heard it at first, Shen Yun was stunned for a moment. He turned around and saw the upright figure standing behind him. Long time no see, I'm Shen Yun now. Shen Yun looked at the people behind him. His face returned to the same expression as when he was just in the meeting. This family member told me that we have all been brothers and sisters since childhood. Although you have returned to your parents' home now, there is no need to be so separated. I'll just call you Yun Yun. If you don't mind, I hope you can call me brother like before. The young man standing behind said with a serious face. At this time, Yan Han next to him also turned around. He had seen Shen Yun's family members. This voice sounded strange. He should be from Ji's family. Ji Jin over there saw Yan Han's face and his eyes flickered very quickly. If Shen Yun hadn't paid attention to him, he would have ignored the matter. Captain Yan, you are sitting with our family. Yun Yun, thank you for taking care of my sister these 2 days, Ji Jin said naturally. This natural attitude is just like that of the elders who made the decision about their own marriage. The caring attitude does not show that it has been almost a year since I left the Ji family. This person has never asked me, and I have never seen him come to see me. Whenever I saw him after leaving Ji's house, I believed that he still had some feelings for me. My current surname is Shen. Your sister Ji Momo is at home. I have several brothers who are usually very free, but I don't have a busy person like you. Shen Yun turned around and stopped looking at this man's hypocritical face. Captain Yan made you laugh. He was spoiled by his family when he was a child, and now he is still acting like a child. We have lived together for more than 10 years. Although Momo is my biological sister, you have been hurt by my family for so many years. How can you just let her go? Do you mind when my mother brought Momo back? At that time, my parents also considered that they could not bear to see the uncles and aunts of the Shen family separated from their own flesh and blood, so they made this decision. I also told my mother when I came back, and she was sad more than once. I regret it. I'm usually busy with work. I didn't expect to meet you here this time. I'm so happy. Ji Jin's words were so sincere that those who didn't know thought it was just an ordinary little dispute. But the two people here knew the whole story, and Shen Yun knew the character of Ji's family even more. This paragraph was obviously not meant for him, but rather for Yan Han next to him. It seemed that Minister Yan's family the background is not simple, and if Ji Jin, who has always been arrogant, can say so many showy words in front of outsiders, it will definitely be of great benefit to climb into the severe cold. Yan Han glanced at Ji Jin calmly. This guy was indeed not a good man. No wonder my sister immediately forgot about this guy after seeing him once. Of course I don't mind. After all, Shen Yun has the right to be angry now, Yan Hanyi said pointedly. End of this chapter. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 234. Chapter 234, 234, Heart-pounding. Chen Yun listened to what Yan Han said and smiled slightly. In that case, I'm going to have a bad temper, Captain Yan. I'm going to go out and get some fresh air. We'll talk about things later when the time is up. Shen Yun looked outside. He pointed, gestured to Yan Han, and walked directly outside. Ji Jin felt very angry when he saw Shen Yun not even saying hello, but just walking outside without giving him face. I'm sorry for my child's temper. It's also my fault that my family spoiled her too much when she was a child. She's the only girl in the family. That's all. I'm sorry. Swallowing the anger in his heart, Ji Jin acted like a big brother. He said dotingly, but the underlying meaning behind his words was that Shen Yun was uneducated. Mr. Ji, I'm afraid you have forgotten what I do. I know the affairs of the Ji family very clearly. Besides, do you think Shen Yun sneaked in when he came to this place today? I advise Mr. Ji to take care of his own family's affairs. Don't get involved in things that are not yours to do. Yan Han saw Shen Yun leaving. He was not in the habit of saving face for others, especially those who got on the pole like this. He himself looked down on such people. After Yan Han said this, he didn't even look at Ji Jin, who was standing aside. He directly greeted a few other people and walked outside. He originally planned to have a meeting here, but now it's not impossible to change the place. Ji Jin stood there alone, looking at Yan Han, who showed no dignity at all. His face was like a palette, changing again and again. Finally, he glanced at Shen Yun and the others with ugly expressions and walked directly outside. Why did you two offend Ji Jin? He is a petty person, and he still likes to sneak into the camp. When a few people walked out, they saw Shen Yun standing in the corridor. Thinking about the situation in the room just now, one of them said quickly. I didn't mess with him. I just knew him before. In front of Minister Yan, I have no qualities, no obedience, and no education. I'm not happy now. I just came out and refused to listen to him. Shen Yun smiled and explained. There were few people, so she felt much more at ease. Let me introduce you to you again. My name is Shen Yun, an ordinary college student who has just graduated. When you put it like that, it's hard for me to say who I am. The person who just heard Shen Yun introduce himself in this way said helplessly, my name is Zhang Min, and I'm just an ordinary employee. Several people nearby heard the two people's opening style, and they all introduced themselves in this way. As for what each person's job is, everyone received a simple introduction in their hands before, and this time they also introduced themselves. Just a symbolic introduction. I will be a colleague from now on. Please take care of me. I am currently the weakest. Standing in front of you big guys is like trembling. Zhang Min has a lively temperament. We have just met each other and don't know what to say. What? After his interruption, everyone gradually became familiar with it. Everyone's strength can be felt standing here. Everyone's aura is about the same. On the contrary, looking at the stunningly beautiful Shen Yun in front of him, he can't tell the difference. A few people would not think that Shen Yun was probably relatively weak and relied on some other means to join the supervision team, as some people did, and then despised her. At this moment, The other three people were secretly guessing how strong Shen Yun was. "Captain Yan, Captain Liang, the leader, please come over and talk." Several people were talking here when they saw a man coming over to call someone. Upon hearing this, several people looked at each other and followed this person directly towards the office next to him. The layout of the leader's office is very simple. When Shen Yun and others arrived at the office, they saw several big leaders here. Several people smiled when they saw Shen Yun. "Look at the children we selected, right?" One of the leaders saw the appearance of several people and said happily to several people next to him. "Not bad, they are all good kids." The people next to them also praised them. "It's not a serious matter to come to you, but you will have to work hard later. The recovery of spiritual energy has just begun, and everything is not perfect. I hope you will record things in time when you find something in your future work, so as to accumulate more experience in the future. You also know how difficult it is to achieve peace and stability in our country now. I hope that the lives of the people in our country will be better because of the recovery of Linky, instead of leading a turbulent life again because of Linky. So your positions are very important, and more of you will join in the future. I hope you can take a good lead." After the praise, the big leader gave ardent instructions to several people. A few people responded. This was the first time Shen Yun had seen such an occasion. Even though it was Master Jin Dan, he was still excited by what he said. He didn't stay with them for long. He gave them a few words of encouragement and let Shen Yun and the others go back to eat first. "I'm going back to practice hard. I still have a lot to do in the future. I must not let down everyone's expectations of me." Jiang Min, who was slightly older than Shen Yun, said enthusiastically just after returning from the office. Several people couldn't help but laugh when they saw him like this. They agreed to meet again on the 20th and left each other's contact information. They separated at the door. "Let's go. Don't worry about what you just met, Ji Jin. I've heard a little bit about what kind of person he is and what kind of work style the Ji family has." Yan Han looked at Shen Yun's silent look this time and thought it was the previous incident with Ji Jin that affected her mood. In fact, Shen Yun had already forgotten Ji Jin. She was just suppressing her surging passion and the excitement of meeting the real leader for the first time. As for Ji Jin, she would not give up in her heart. He saved his place. "Well, I don't want him. Let's go back first and go to the Chinese medicine doctor tomorrow morning." It was already getting late this time, and it was not appropriate to visit him again. "Okay, my car is parked outside. I just want to go back to the dormitory today and take you with me," Yan Han invited. Shen Yun didn't refuse, it was all a matter of course. After returning home, Chen Yun did ink in the room for a while, and then entered the space directly. He had to prepare things to give to Hu Yan before the 20th this time. He was very excited. Chen Yun entered the space without practicing, so he just took it. He picked up his sword and practiced in the open space. She has now reached the 5th level of Chaos Sword technique, and is currently trying to practice the 6th level. She always felt out of shape before, but today the fire in her heart made her feel that she can win the 6th level. The swordsmanship moves have been engraved in my mind. After practicing the 5th level, the 6th level was demonstrated naturally from my own hands. It's done. End of this chapter. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 235. Chapter 235, 235, that thing looks like a pill. The 6th level of the Chaos Sword technique seemed to come naturally. It was used without any difficulty in my own hands. Each move was more subtle and more natural than when I tried to draw it before. Shen Yun practiced step by step until all the spiritual energy in his body was exhausted, and then he put away Qing Feng. He first meditated and practiced to replenish the spiritual energy in his body, and then started to refine the neutralizing potion. This was relatively simple, and Shen Yun did it very quickly. When it was almost done, Shen Yun had refined one more potion than last time. Times the amount. This should be able to be used for a long time, but I also remind myself about this matter. I need to find a helper for myself. If I have something to do in the future, this helper can refine the neutralizing potion. With this thought, Shen Yun didn't stay in the space any longer. The time was almost up, so he left the space. After cleaning himself up, he heard the honking of a car horn outside. Grabbing his backpack, Shen Yun walked out the door. Now that he has a formation at home, people who know about it are basically waiting for him outside to avoid trouble when they come in. What they don't know is that this formation can only be used by himself occasionally. Run it when you are at home. Otherwise, if you run the formation every day, wouldn't you still need spiritual stones? Shen Yun sat in the cold car and the car slid out. Is it appropriate for us to go so early? Shen Yun looked at the sky outside. Although it was getting early, it was only after 6 o'clock, and there were not many people on the street. It's appropriate sometimes they study things and stay up all night. Did I call them specifically yesterday? I brought someone over today to let them know each other and remind them to get a good rest. At this time, they are probably already awake and waiting. Let's go early to avoid them waiting too long. Yan Han said to Shen Yun while staring at the road ahead. That's okay. Shen Yun didn't have any objections to not delaying others' rest. The two of them walked in a winding way until they reached the outskirts. This place was quite good. There was no contact between the front and back. There was only a single building standing there. How did you get this place? It's really clean. Shen Yun got out of the car and looked at it carefully and said. This place occupies a large area, a large yard, and is covered by green trees, but the trees are still some distance away from the buildings. There's nothing we can do about it. Refining alchemy is all about playing with fire. We even had furnaces exploded twice in the city. We were afraid of causing fires and explosion casualties, so we moved the place here directly. The army is stationed nearby, so it's safe. Yan Han explained. This place is better than the city. It has a tall gate and a large courtyard, and it's also secluded. Shen Yun looked at the tall courtyard wall and the sign hanging at the door. No one without any trouble would go near this place. Let's go in and have a look. I was here a long time ago, and I don't know how I've been doing this time. Yan Han led Shen Yun and walked directly towards the gate. There were people checking at the door. The two people were let in after showing their IDs. The management was quite strict. This place is nice. These medicinal materials grow very well, but they are all ordinary medicinal materials. Where are the spiritual plants we got back? As soon as Shen Yun came in, he saw that the yard was full of things. Some herbs. Those plants are very large and they are grown in hidden places. There are specialized people studying the ingredients and uses of those plants. Those are some spiritual plants. Using those things to refine elixirs may be much better than the ordinary medicinal materials in front of you. It's not that I haven't thought about it, but the number of these spiritual plants is relatively rare at present. We are studying how to cultivate them. Maybe we will try using these spiritual plants after we find out how to make elixirs in the future, Yan Han said helplessly. Just dig out a few spiritual plants to make samples. However, even if you dig out all the spiritual plants in the ground, the number will not be much. You still need to study how to cultivate these spiritual plants before they can be used freely. Okay, let's go and have a look first. The two people walked through the long courtyard and walked directly towards the building. In a large office, Shen Yun saw the group of researchers Yan Han was talking about. Some were older and some were younger. Everyone was in high spirits. When they saw Yan Han and Shen Yun walking in, they stood up immediately. Captain Yan, didn't you say that you would bring an alchemist here today for a chat? Is he here? Where is he? Do you want us to meet him? A group of people surrounded the two people and said eagerly. Here comes the person next to me, her name is Shen Yun. Yan Han quickly introduced her to the people surrounding her. When everyone heard what Yan Han said, their eyes immediately moved to Shen Yun next to them. This is a bit too young. The old Chinese medicine doctor next to him looked at Shen Yun for a long time before he reluctantly found his words. A hero comes from a young age. Lao Liao, don't bother here, get out of the way, let's take people over to see my works. Although an old professor next to him also thought so, it did not stop him from wanting to see Shen Shen. Does Yun have such strength? Anyway, even if he doesn't believe in Shen Yun, he believes in Yan Han next to him. This young man is a reliable person. Shen Yun looked at the group of people here. The older ones were really old, and the younger ones were about the same as himself. Moreover, it seemed that the younger ones were all cultivators. It seemed that this alchemy research institute was somewhat involved in alchemy. Then let's go see everyone's works. Shen Yun did not refuse this decision. When everyone heard what Shen Yun said, they turned around and walked upstairs with others. There were many rooms upstairs, and the doors were closed, but Shen Yun still saw some strange things in the room through his spiritual consciousness. Each room was different. It seemed that everyone who studied alchemy here had their own personality. Shen Yun followed the others through many rooms, and arrived at a large room on the side. There were some shelves in it, and there were many bottles and cans on them. It seemed that they usually communicated in this place. On the walls there is also a blackboard, which is full of writing. I don't know if this thing is the other party's idea of alchemy. Shen Yun glanced at it and then moved his eyes away. The above idea of alchemy relied directly on technology. Shen Yun didn't know whether this method would be successful in the end. Anyway, this was not the path she took. As soon as Shen Yun stood still, he saw everyone walking directly towards the shelf. Everyone was holding a few jars and placing them directly on the long table in front of them. Looking at Shen Yun standing here, they started to prepare one by one. Introduce their own work. Shen Yun looked at the so-called elixirs with different shapes, states, tastes, and colors. He was shocked for a moment, and sighed that these people had such great brainstorming. There were Chinese patent medicines and things like Western medicine in these things. Anyway, Shen Yun was shocked. Yun didn't see anything that looked like an elixir. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 236. Chapter 236, 236, Alchemy. Seeing a group of people looking at him eagerly, as if they wanted him to evaluate it, Shen Yun was silent for a moment and said, "Well, I have a pill here. Let's see how it is different from yours." Speaking, Shen Yun took out the prepared spirit replenishing pill and Pei Yuan pill from his backpack. Two small jade bottles were placed on the table, which looked out of place with the various bottles and jars on the table. Shen Yun first poured out the Pei Yuan pill. Let's take a look at this. It is a pill that strengthens the essence and nourishes the essence. I remember that traditional Chinese medicine also pays attention to the essence and essence. Let's take a look and hear it, Shen Yun said. He took a step back to the side and made room for the eager crowd. From the time Shen Yun poured out the elixir, everyone couldn't take their eyes away. The elixir was round in shape with mysterious lines on it, and it looked much more reliable than the lump they made. Then if you smell it carefully, you can smell a medicinal fragrance. After this medicinal fragrance enters the body, you just feel refreshed and the fatigue of staying up late for a long time has dissipated a lot. At this moment, as soon as Shen Yun got out of the way, everyone crowded over. There was no need to pay attention to the order of seniority and youth. Anyway, whoever was faster would get the elixir first. Looking at the elixir from a close distance, there is a big difference between this elixir and theirs. whether it is color, state, or taste. Can we have a little taste of this? The person next to him could already smell the smell of Pu and Dan, but what kind of medicinal materials were in it really wanted to know. There is only one Pu pill if you want to try it, you can. I don't have any for now, Shen Yun explained to everyone carefully. Okay, you can try it. Everyone couldn't wait to divide the elixirs. After all, Shen Yun said that she was an alchemist, so they always wanted to see how effective the medicine was. Shen Yun watched as each of them divided a piece of Pu and Dan about the size of a sesame seed, and then carefully put it into his mouth. How is it? How do you feel after eating it? Shen Yun asked curiously. These people have really achieved the ultimate in traditional Chinese medicine. They look at a pill and eat it in their stomachs to see what effect it has. It's fragrant, and the medicine is fully integrated. It's a combination of multiple medicinal materials. I haven't found out what the specific medicinal materials are, the old Chinese doctor next to him murmured. The medicinal materials used here are different from the traditional Chinese medicine you usually use for refining. These are spiritual plants. They may have been ordinary medicinal materials thousands of years ago, but now they contain spiritual energy, and after being burned by the fire, they can't be healed in the middle. Let the spiritual energy dissipate and use special pill-making techniques to finally create these pills. Chen Yun did not hide them, but introduced them to everyone carefully. The people below listened carefully and realized that there was no progress in alchemy for such a long time. It may be that the medicinal materials were not used correctly, but now they do not have spiritual plants or special techniques for alchemy. It seems that all this long-term research has been in vain. I wonder if you have any elixirs here. Can you practice it once and show it to us? The person next to him was a little regretful, but he still wanted to see how the elixirs worked. Practiced. Okay, I'll prepare it, and you can also record it. These techniques for making elixirs are universal. You can write them down so that you can use them when you become an alchemist. Shen Yun did not refuse. When she came, she be prepared and communicate with each other. Refining alchemy will definitely be indispensable. When everyone heard Shen Yun say this, they quickly went back to get paper and pens, and tools for those who had tools. Shen Yun took out the prepared spiritual plants from his own space, and then took out the alchemy furnace he had been using from his bag. The small alchemy furnace immediately became normal size after landing. Shen Yun waited here for a while, and soon he saw a group of people coming with complete equipment. Comrade Shen Yun, you can start, an old Chinese doctor next to him urged. Start right away, don't be anxious, everyone. Shen Yun calmed everyone's emotions, and then started refining the elixir. She looked like she was learning alchemy from her ancestors at that time. While practicing, she carefully explained the steps, techniques, and some precautions. Anyway, Shen Yun has explained most of the things that need to be paid attention to when refining the pill. Looking at the people writing furiously below, Shen Yun was quite satisfied. Do you have any doubts? Shen Yun looked at the people who had taken notes and continued to ask. I have a question. I want to ask, if this person is not an immortal cultivator, can he really not practice elixirs? Asked a middle-aged man next to him. This is what I know so far, but now that technology is becoming more and more advanced, no one can predict whether everyone will be able to make elixirs in the future and no longer need divine consciousness and spiritual energy. Shen Yun told the truth. What she understands is that one must be a cultivator to make elixirs. As for what happens in the future, she really has nothing to do with it. Teacher Liao, no wonder we haven't made any progress for so long. I think we can only rely on these young people for this matter. We can't practice, so we can only go back and continue to practice Chinese medicine. This man was a little disappointed when he heard what Shen Yun said. Hey, Chinese medicine is pretty good too. After all, I've been doing it for so long. I, an old man, have stayed up all night with you for so long. It seems I can finally have a good rest. After hearing what Shen Yun said, several old men said, not really any regrets. Teachers, do you want to leave? The words of several old men suddenly made the scene a little panicked. What are you afraid of? Someone is teaching you how to make alchemy now. You should learn it well. If we leave, there will be no restrictions. I will count on you to take up the matter of alchemy in the future. Teacher Liao looked at the long words below. The time man was a little flustered and quickly scolded him. A few young cultivators originally came to help the teachers, but I didn't expect that they would become the main force in alchemy in the future. Shen Yun looked at the atmosphere at the scene, turned around and asked Yan Han on the side, shouldn't I just say it directly? You have to know sooner or later. Knowing it earlier will save these teachers from wasting time on things that are destined to fail. You don't understand, these teachers' Chinese medicine skills are all at the level of Dean. If no one had picked up this matter at that time, these teachers would not have come to take charge of this matter. Now that the alchemy matter has been solved, let them return. Maybe the best thing for them is to get back to their jobs. Yan Han whispered on the side, and only then did Shen Yun know that there was this thing in between. Seeing a group of teachers packing their things and leaving, Shen Yun quickly followed them. Teachers, I want to ask you about some medical matters. When several people heard what Shen Yun said, they all stopped and asked, what situation are you talking about? Shen Yun explained Shen Jian's situation in detail. Looking at the slightly thoughtful faces of several people, Shen Yun felt a little hopeful. End of this chapter. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 237. Chapter 237, 237, how about you sort out what you know and publish it in a book? In this way, Chinese medicine pays attention to face-to-face diagnosis. After all, even if the situation looks the same on the outside, the actual situation still needs to be determined based on the specific situation. See if you can bring the person over to have a look. We old guys can give him a consultation. Then we can decide whether to take medicine or acupuncture. Several people did not refuse and directly gave this method. Okay, then I will trouble all the teachers when I bring them here, Shen Yun said politely. When he will be promoted to the nascent soul stage, this is all uncertain, or he was too simple in his thinking at the time. I thought that when I reached the golden elixir stage, the nascent soul stage would be fast, but I didn't know that when I actually reached the golden elixir stage, I realized that each small step of progress requires a lot of time and effort, and it is thousands more difficult than the foundation building stage to rise to the golden elixir stage. 100 times. After all, the lifespan of ordinary people is limited. Shen Yun thought that he could not just wait for himself to advance to the nascent soul stage and then refine elixirs. He should try all the methods that could be tried now, and his own could only be the last choice. No trouble, you still need to teach these boys about alchemy here. It is also our duty to treat illnesses and save people, several teachers said with a smile. They all had kind faces. These people could be said to be the national medical team. Shen Yun was very grateful for their promise of consultation. No one here expected that because of Shen Yun's arrival, several people would leave here. Except for 2 doctors who were still interested in alchemy, everyone decided to return to their posts. There are only 2 doctors left here and a few other practitioners in the Qi training period. The people staying here now are all people who are interested in alchemy, right? Shen Yun made sure first. The people on the opposite side all gave definite answers. We originally met in this team because of our interest and mission. Now that we have the opportunity, we must stick to it even more. Seeing that everyone across from him nodded, Shen Yun didn't hesitate and started directly talking about the precautions for refining alchemy. First of all, the first point is to be able to use fire, then the spiritual consciousness must be strong, and of course the most important point is to have a spiritual plant. Although ordinary medicinal materials also have effects, they do not have the same effect as elixirs. When everyone saw that Shen Yun spoke in such detail, they couldn't let go of other things in their minds. They all put away the surprise they had just now, and began to memorize what Shen Yun said seriously. The day passed very quickly, and after agreeing to come back the next day, Shen Yun went back directly with Yan Han. I can't just talk about it myself. It's impossible for me to tell everyone about spiritual plants one by one. Shen Yun discovered many problems over the course of the day. The first was the gap in knowledge. Although the country has many ancient books recording plants, medical books, but it will take a long time to find out which spiritual plants are among these recorded things. Shen Yun is a little hesitant to take out the encyclopedia of spiritual plants. There is no good way at the moment, we can only do this. After all, apart from you, there is really no one else who can. Yan Han also looked at Shen Yun's alchemy process just now. The entire operation process was indeed different from what he saw them trying before. I can't just stay here. Hey, there's no other way, why don't you sort out what you know and publish a book? Yan Han thought about it and said. Shen Yun thought, this is okay. This way, he doesn't have to explain what books he took out. He just needs to be more shameless and take all the credit of his ancestors on himself. I'll think about it when I get back. Okay, if you need help then just ask. This is a measure that benefits the public. Yan Han fully supports Shen Yun's approach. In this case, Shen Yun is not in a hurry. It is difficult to take out the collection of spiritual plants in his own space, but he can find a way to burn the things directly onto the jade slips, and then find someone who can draw them. That's it. However, there is not much space in the jade slips. Can you provide me with some jade? I may not be professional in painting. I directly use jade to make jade slips and save the content in them. This is fast and accurate. Later, if you want to make it into a book, you just need to find someone who can draw it. Hearing what Shen Yun said, Yan Han sighed and said, I didn't expect you to make such a thing. This is comparable to that kind of chip. To feel awesome. Each one is different. Chips are technological products and anyone with a machine can use them, but jade slips are not. If I don't want outsiders to see the jade slips, then I can set up restrictions. And even if ordinary people can read the jade slips, there are limitations. Ordinary people have weak spiritual consciousness, so they must set something on the jade slips so that the large amount of content will not overwhelm people's spirits. Shen Yun analyzed. Is that so? I still know a little bit. When your jade slips are ready, can you let us have a look at them? Yan Han asked. No problem, I need your help to find someone reliable to draw it. Shen Yun nodded. Although she has become a full-time employee now and has also taken on the position of supervisor, the people she knows are not yet cold. Guang, after all, the people Yan Han has dealt with in various departments for so many years are definitely not comparable to him. After the two of them agreed on the matter, they arrived home and agreed on a time to go out tomorrow. Shen Yun went straight into the house. After practicing in the space for a night, he felt refreshed the next day. After staying in the Alchemy Research Institute for a long time, Shen Yun left here. As for Yan Han, he went to get jade stones for Shen Yun. When he arrived at the door of his house, Shen Yun saw a car parked at the door from a distance. He quickly walked over and saw Anhu and Hu Yan sitting in the car. There was also a driver sitting in front of him, who was a cultivator. It seemed that Anhu attached great importance to the matter of picking up things this time, otherwise it would be impossible for the cultivator to come over and be the driver. As soon as Shen Yun approached, the people in the car spotted her. I've kept you waiting for a long time, and something has delayed me, Shen Yun said apologetically. It's okay, we just came here too, Anhu said nonchalantly. I've prepared everything. Let's go in and take a look. Shen Yun looked at Anhu's eager look and opened the door directly to invite people in. Hu Yan and Anhu followed Shen Yun into the house. Shen Yun had already taken out the stuff and put it in the room. When the two of them entered, they saw a huge amount of neutralizer. Thank you for your hard work, this time the amount is more than last time, and it will last for a long time. And Hu said excitedly. I'll do it, but it's harder for you. Do it more this time to avoid delays next time if something happens, Shen Yun said with a smile. It's not hard work, I'm happy to do this. And Hu waved her hand and said with a smile. The age of rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 238. Chapter 238, 238, Cultivators Conference. After picking up the things, the two of them didn't stay here any longer and drove back directly in the car. Shen Yun didn't stay in the room for long when he heard a knock on the door. Seeing that the severe cold had returned, Shen Yun ran over and opened the door without bothering. I found some jade stones for you, see if you can use them, Yan Han said, and opened the door of the back seat of the car. 3 boxes were placed steadily on the back seat. When he opened it, he saw that there were 3 pieces of jade, not too small in size. Didn't this cost a lot of money? Shen Yun asked casually, but he was not polite in his hands and moved the box directly into the room. They were all high-quality jade stones. Although they were not as good as spiritual stones, they were good for making jade slips. Is enough. Money is not an issue as long as the things can be made well. It's worth the money. Yan Han moved the other 2 boxes in the car from behind. Shen Yun went back to move another box. Go in and drink a glass of water, Shen Yun said, looking at Yan Han, who was standing upright. Although these jade stones were made to make jade slips to record the types of spiritual plants, they also contributed, and he could still afford to drink a glass of water. No, there are still things to do. There is a meeting tomorrow, and there are still things to prepare. Yan Han shook his head. Shen Yun moved the boxes, and Yan Han left without stopping. As for whether Shen Yun should go there, it was all about setting up the venue, and Shen Yun had more important things to do. Shen Yun was so happy that he carried the jade stones directly into the space. The making method of jade slips is recorded in the Artifact Refining Encyclopedia. This is the main tool for immortal cultivators to store information, so the making method is not difficult. It is made of jade and a formation. Shen Yun first divided these pieces of jade into palm-sized jade pieces, and then started refining according to the records in the book. He first used fire to refine some impurities in the jade. This step is actually similar to alchemy. The only difference is whether it is useful. It's just an alchemy furnace. This step went smoothly. The next step is to carve the formation on the refined jade. This step is much more difficult. If the jade is accidentally carved, the jade slip will be destroyed. The refined jade slip shrunk a lot and was just big enough to be held in the palm of his hand. Shen Yun took a deep breath while holding the jade slip, then raised the carving knife and used spiritual energy to cut directly on the jade. Under the aura and carving knife, the jade was like tofu, leaving traces easily. It was the first time Shen Yun did this, but he didn't control the intensity well. After a while, the first jade was destroyed. Putting it aside, Shen Yun continued to start the second one. It was not until the 5th jade slip was carved out with one stroke that the entire formation flashed with light, and then the jade became more transparent and rounded. This was considered a success. Shen Yun immediately relaxed. She had just failed one after another and almost lost her confidence. After succeeding in this one, her fighting spirit was aroused again. Shen Yun looked at the dozens of jade stones around him, and took advantage of the fact that he felt better this time and continued to carve them. He didn't do anything all night, so he just spent time with these jade stones, which eventually became 12 jade slips. As for the other jade stones, Shen Yun directly changed them into simple peace charms. It was not a waste. This thing, it can withstand 3 physical attacks, which is not very useful for cultivators, but for ordinary people, this is a good thing. With the jade slip completed, Shen Yun was not anxious about the next move. Instead, he meditated peacefully and replenished the spiritual energy consumed in his body. He had to attend the cultivator conference at dawn. The time was almost up, and Shen Yun left the space directly, changed her clothes, and brought her ID. Today she was not only a participant, but also responsible for other issues. After all, she was still a member of the special department, and some cultivators had bad tempers. It was all thanks to Shen Yun and the others to suppress them. Today's meeting is not in the same conference room as the last meeting. After all, there are many times more people this time than last time. When Shen Yun arrived, people were already queuing up at the door. This time it was held in a large house, and the people responsible for registering information at the door were also members of the special department. After registration, everyone will be given a number. When the regulations on the conduct of cultivators are announced, you can use this number to vote. As for the name, you have to wait until the next meeting to accompany it. After all, who will come this time? It's not clear. As for whether there are any criminals sneaking in to cause trouble, Shen Yun can only say that they are welcome to come, and every preparation has been made here. Shen Yun was not in a hurry to go in, he just stood at the door and watched. The supervisors are not so relaxed today. They have already taken office. The security at this meeting relies on a few of them and people from special departments. As time went by, more and more people gathered at the door. 4 registration positions are working at the same time, and there are still many people gathered in Wayman. No one had expected that so many people would come this time. Shen Yun looked at the people registering and their hands were almost flying. Some people were still dissatisfied. It was noisy, and the people in line gradually became excited. We are here to serve everyone. The staff are already working hard. Please calm down and you will be able to go in later. Shen Yun stared at the people who were talking louder and louder. Being provoked, Shen Yun was not polite and directly released his restrained momentum. The entire venue went silent. Those who were weak felt as if they couldn't breathe. They looked towards where Shen Yun was standing in horror. Everyone's attention was originally focused on today's meeting, but now Shen Yun's pressure dropped and everyone looked over. Seeing that it worked, Shen Yun immediately regained his momentum and stood beside him like an ordinary person. Everyone, please feel free to line up. As for what is going on at today's meeting, it will be clear when you get inside. What are your opinions on the meeting held by the state? You can pick it up later. Everyone felt that Shen Yun's strong sense of oppression had disappeared, and they took a careful breath. After listening to Shen Yun's words, none of them dared to say anything more. They queued up obediently, only occasionally looking at Xiang Yun's face. His eyes were startled and frightened. Half an hour later, everyone queuing outside went in. Thank you just now. If it weren't for you, we would probably have a quarrel with them. The person who registered had finished his work and hurried over to say thank you to Shen Yun. You're welcome, this is my job too, clean it up, let's go in first. You go in, we have to compile these lists into a book, and then make them into famous brands. This will save us some trouble tomorrow. A few people quickly waved their hands. Only then did Shen Yun find out that they had another mission, so he walked directly inside without saying anything else. This meeting was held in the open air. Shen Yun walked around the screen wall in front and saw that the whole courtyard was full of people. Yan Han and the others stood at the 4 corners of the courtyard, exuding a faint pressure. The atmosphere inside was much better than outside. Quiet is much more serious. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 239. Chapter 239, 239, Encounter with the 2 Shen brothers. It seems that no matter how prickly one is, he will still suppress his temper in such an environment. Although there was a long notice in advance, fewer people attended the meeting than expected. Shen Yun looked at the people in the courtyard. There were people who had attended the meeting a few days ago, and most of them were unfamiliar faces. She actually saw Shen Hong and Shen Hong inside. She originally planned to find out if they were in Kunlun Mountain, but she didn't know it was such a coincidence that they were here too. Shen Yun planned to wait for the meeting to end before looking for them. His eyes continued to move around the yard. After a while, he saw two brothers from the Ji family, Ji Jin and his eldest cousin Ji Ming. Ji Jin came to the last meeting alone. Unexpectedly, two people came this time. Thinking about what Ji Jin said last time, Shen Yun's face turned cold. Regardless of whether he really came to attend the meeting this time or came to cause trouble for him, I hope they won't use such clumsy methods like last time. Strategy. It didn't take long for the meeting to start. Shen Yun was sitting in his seat. The first task of this meeting was to discuss the regulations discussed at the last meeting. Shen Yun had heard of all these, but he didn't have any opinions. This part went very smoothly. Next is the free discussion session. If the people below have any good ideas, they can put them forward for discussion. At this time, the below people become lively. After all, it is the first time for most people to participate in such a gathering of hundreds of people. In the meeting, you can now speak freely. Everyone was a little shy at first, but as someone started to speak, the emotions of the people next to them were also aroused. The whole courtyard suddenly became noisy. Suddenly it turned from quiet to noisy, and Shen Yun couldn't help but pick his ears. This matter does not end in one day. There are 3 days for everyone to discuss freely. Then there is the time to let yourself go. You can freely walk around the yard to discuss. After 3 days, there will be another meeting to discuss the results of the discussion over the past few days. Although the situation in the yard was messy, Shen Yun and the others did not stop them. As long as there was no fighting, this would be a time for free speech. As the people moved around, the two brothers from the Shen family and the two brothers from the Ji family, who had not seen Shen Yun because they had arrived early, also discovered Shen Yun here. The two Ji brothers glanced at Shen Yun, then turned their heads and discussed something in a low voice. When the two Shen brothers saw Shen Yun, they both walked over excitedly. After walking a few steps, the two of them saw the work sign in front of Shen Yun and stopped hesitantly. Shen Yun took the initiative to walk over there. Wait for me at the door when it's over. We'll talk in detail then. When the two people heard what Shen Yun said, they nodded immediately. Then let's go find other people to discuss it. The two people concealed the happiness on their faces, said something to Shen Yun, and walked into the crowd. Shen Yun returned to his seat and sat down. They had already participated in the discussion of the articles that day. Now that they are supervisors, they are not needed for the discussion here. They only need to participate in the voting later. The day is over quickly. Those who haven't had enough fun with the discussion can continue to make appointments after today. Anyway, it's time for Shen Yun and others to get off work. Looking at everyone leaving the place, Shen Yun and the others closed the courtyard. The moment the courtyard gate closed, a formation rose from the ground and directly covered the courtyard. Captain Yan, you are really good at this. Can you teach us sometime when you can? Several other people nearby couldn't help but said when they saw this scene. I only know a few superficial things, but the real master is standing next to you, Yan Han said with a smile. He also studied formations, but he didn't know if it was due to his talent. The books given by Mr. Zhang were all torn through, so he could only draw some symbols and make a few simple formations. This large-scale defensive formation was the best one he had laid, which may come in handy this time. I'm not a master, I just know a little bit about it, Shen Yun said modestly. Don't be modest. Captain Yan never talks big. When we are free someday, can we talk about it? I'm quite interested in this thing. Zhang Min came to Shen Yun and said. Okay, let's find some time to talk about it then. Shen Yun nodded. He had already taken over the alchemy job anyway, so it wouldn't be a problem to be a little busier. That's okay, Jiangmin's voice rose with joy. I separated from a few people, and not far away, I saw the two Shen brothers waiting by the roadside. Yunyun, the two of them greeted people happily. Let's go. Yunyun, I really didn't expect to meet you on my first day in Beijing. I'm so lucky. We also wanted to find time to find out where your school is. The two of them were very excited when they saw Shen Yun. Fortunately, we met here. Didn't my family say that you went to Kunlun Mountain to look for things? How was it? Did you gain anything? Shen Yun asked curiously. We went too late. When we arrived, the treasures on Kunlun Mountain had already been obtained by others. We followed other cultivators and wandered around the outskirts of Kunlun Mountain for a few days. We also harvested a lot of things. We heard from others that the market, when there was news that the city was going to hold a meeting, we came over to join in the fun, and we rushed all the way, and the time just arrived, Shen Heng explained. Just now, Shen Yun was still thinking about how these two people looked so messy even though they were clean. Now that he heard their experiences, he understood a little bit more. I have been in the mountainous area for such a long time along the way. Plus, I have been in Beijing for so long. I don't know how to survive. It must be very embarrassing. Let's go, I'll take you to clean up. Shen Yun asked the two people to follow him. Is it convenient? Didn't their uncle say that you live in the dormitory of the school? We are all boys, so it's not good to go in, the two people said hesitantly. I've come out to live, but the place I'm taking you to today is not where I live. You haven't arranged your place in Beijing yet. I'll take you to make arrangements. Shen Yun planned to take the two of them directly to the small apartment assigned to him. Courtyard. No, we two grown men can't deal with each other there for one night. Don't spend money. We've been here all this way. Look at the rough skin and thick flesh. Nothing has happened. The two of them thought Shen Yun I wanted to find them a guest house or something to stay in, so I quickly stopped them. Don't worry, it won't cost anything, Shen Yun said quickly, seeing the two people refusing to get out of the way unless they made it clear that the two of them wanted to say something else, but were blocked by Shen Yun. No need to say anything, just follow me. There are still several days left for the next meeting. It will take more than one night to deal with it. Don't worry. No money, no trouble. Hearing Shen Yun's words, the two of them dispelled their doubts and followed Shen Yun forward curiously. End of this chapter. The Age of Rebirth, the fake daughter relies on cultivation to become bigger and stronger. Author, Laughing Charm. Chapter 240. Chapter 240, 240, Encounters on the Road. Shen Yun took them all the way to his small courtyard. After a while, the place was filled with vegetation and dust again. Dust Shen Yun can be cleaned up with just one cleaning spell, and it is easy to deal with weeds. You can directly use wood spells to activate them, and the plants will age instantly. With just one earth spell, the remains of these plants will disappear directly on the ground. What kind of magic is this? It's so practical to get these things done so quickly. You don't know that we wasted a lot of effort just cleaning them along the way, Shen Heng asked curiously. Don't worry, I'll teach you when I have time. There is a place for washing here. You should clean it up first. I will see if there is a vegetable cellar nearby and buy some so that you can cook in your spare time. Although this house is good, it lacks a lot of things. Shen Yun decided to go shopping. The two of us will go with you, Shen Heng said quickly. You guys have a good rest here, I can go faster by myself. After Shen Yun said this, the two of them stopped fighting. After all, they were indeed lagging behind compared to Shen Yun. Shen Yun found a nearby small street when he went out. This place is fully equipped with everything. By the time Shen Yun purchased a complete set of daily necessities, all the supplementary wages he had received during this period were used up. This money is really not worth spending, Shen Yun muttered, then led the door-to-door delivery people directly towards his small courtyard. Yun Yun, what's going on with you? The two Shen brothers opened the door and saw Shen Yun standing at the door with a group of people, and asked in surprise. I bought a lot of things, and they have them delivered to my door. Please help me pick them up, Shen Yun greeted. Coming, the two people responded and hurried up to pick up the things. In a short while, Shen Yun's salary was reflected in this room. The kitchen was full, and the bedroom was fully prepared. Some trivial daily necessities were all available. Shen Yun even bought them specially for his two brothers. Clothing. These things cost a lot of money, so we might as well stay in a guest house, the two people said regretfully as they looked at the room full of things. Then you are wrong. Although it costs a lot of money, this house belongs to me. This is just to add things to my home that can be used in the future. It is not a waste of money. Shen Yun had long thought, I came here to tidy up this house, but I never had the time to live alone. The dormitory over there is pretty good. Now that someone at home is coming over, I have tidied up this house. Although it is not a big house, it is enough for my family to rest. Is this your house? The two of them were surprised for a moment, then turned around and became happy. Okay, this house looks much better than the house in our hometown. This is a house in Beijing. After you graduate, you will work in Beijing. We don't have to worry anymore. Hearing that this house belonged to Shen Yun, the two of them immediately changed their attitudes. They only thought that this house looked good. Okay, you two hurry up and clean up. You have to live here for a few days anyway. I'll give you a good look when I have time. It's just a small courtyard, not a big quadrangle. Take a look at what you are looking for. Shen Yun looked at it. Looking at the people who were wandering around in the yard again, I quickly urged them. Okay, the two of them stopped writing, packed up the things Shen Yun bought, and then started to pack themselves up. When it got completely dark, a few people managed to sit down at the dinner table. Yun Yun, aren't you in school? Why are you there today with your work permit? Shen Hong asked curiously. I applied for early graduation. I am working there now. It's good to work in Beijing. At least it's safe and stable. You don't know how many things we have encountered along the way. If my third brother and I weren't pretty strong, we probably wouldn't have dared to stay outside at this moment. After relaxing, Shen Hankei said with lingering fear. Oh, what happened to you? Tell me. Shen Yun never encountered any special situation every time he went out, either by car or flying with a sword. Shen Hong, it's all in the past. Why are you talking about it? It's just to make people worry. Shen Hong disapproved of Shen Hong telling what happened on the road. Talk about what's going on. This is also a reminder to Yun Yun. Although she is better than us, she is a girl. Now that she is working, she will definitely have to go out. Let's talk to Yun Yun about these things so that she can have a clear mind. Shen Hong's point of view is very different from Shen Hong's. Okay, let's talk about it. Shen Yun directly interrupted the two people. Tell me, Shen Hong compromised. Shen Hong carefully told Shen Yun and others about their journey here. They took a car to Kunlun, and the journey was smooth. When they were on Kunlun Mountain, they encountered 3 interceptions, all of which wanted their hands. Something. Fortunately, the two of them teamed up with a few other people and were able to run out smoothly. When they heard the news from Beijing, because they didn't have much money and spent money eating out, the two of them chose to walk here. They encountered robbers, deceivers, and swindlers along the way. Originally, they could have been faster, but because of these things they encountered on the road, the two of them arrived in Beijing this morning. Are there so many things on the road now? Yes, there are cultivators involved in these things, and 1 or 2 of them are pretty good. Even if someone calls the police, these people hide directly, and the police can't do anything to them. Slowly, they form a cancer on the road, and these people often commit crimes in gangs, and if we weren't clever, we would have been deceived. Shen Heng has always felt that his brain is pretty good, but he still has trouble guarding against people who use various methods on the road. Hearing this, Shen Yun was silent for a moment. No wonder a supervisory department needs to be established. If this situation continues, social chaos and national strength will decline. You can also report this matter at this conference to alert more people. However, this situation will not last long and someone will deal with it immediately. I can only give you a warning, our strength alone is still too small. Shen Heng sighed. Shen Yun comforted the two of them, and after dinner, she didn't stay here any longer and walked directly to where she lived. There have been many more cultivators in the capital these days. They have so many things to do that it is impossible to sleep. The entire special department has been mobilized. Shen Yun was busy with the meeting all night, and went to the meeting early the next morning. Only then did he tell a few other people what Shen Heng and the others had said last night. It seems that our grassroots team needs to be formed as soon as possible. Let's quickly find people in the next 2 days. Shen Yun looked at a few people thinking deeply and reminded them. End of this chapter.